Welcome to this lovely day. Let the doors of the church open wide, welcoming us to this new day. Let the windows of our hearts be flung open to admit the blessed and the broken. Let all of us who long for a spirit-filled, justice-seeking community be fully present to the movement and the moments of the holy in our lives. Welcome. We now kindle this chalice flame for all who are here and all who are not, for those who have ever walked through these doors and for those who may yet find this their spiritual home, and for those we can't yet imagine. For each of us, for all of us, may this flame burn warm and bright. It is good to be together. Friends, we ask you to refrain from singing if you are indoors, even with your masks on, but that does not stop you from participating in our opening hymn. So we invite you to rise together in body and or spirit, and if you're at home watching this, sing out loud and proud. If you're in the sanctuary, hum, sway, feel the power of the gathered community in your spiritual home. Gather the Spirit, harvest the power.
Lord. Welcome to All Souls Unitarian. Good morning. My name is Sherry Gilbert, and I am today's worship associate. My pronouns are she, hers. And it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the first of our 2 homecoming Sundays at All Souls Church Unitarian. And can you all hear me okay? Is everything? Thank you. Whew. Whether you are in the building or watching from home or someplace around the world, welcome to this place where all people of all races, national origins, creeds, gender identities and expressions, sexual orientations, ages and abilities, where all people are welcome at this table of love and fellowship. Today's Sunday morning preacher is Interim Senior Minister Reverend Kathleen Rollens, with liturgists Reverend Louise Green and Reverend Rob Keithan, and reader Reverend Maybelle Bennett. At the end of today's service, outside on the 16th Street steps, you'll hear the All Souls Festival Choir and our Acoma drummers. Out of concern for safety, everyone except for the ASL interpreter and Reverend Rollens will remain masked throughout the service. We extend a special greeting to those joining us for the first time and those who have continued to attend weekly. For those in the building, you can access the order of service by QR code, although we have limited printed orders of service for those who would prefer that. For those watching on Zoom, the order service can be found in the chat. Although the building has been closed, church programs have never stopped. Our weekly email bulletin is the best way to find out the latest news. You can sign up through the link posted in the chat or visit All Souls website. It's important to recognize the people who lived on the land where our church now stands. The closest village was Nukatchak, from which the name Anacostia is derived. They were part of the Piscataway group of First Nations people on this land. As we reflect on our role in building the beloved community, we summon our communal strength in intercultural acts of love across the ethno-cultural spectrum of humanity to include our First Nation siblings. We acknowledge that Indigenous peoples were here before us, are here with us now, and will continue to be with us as we look to the future. Let's take a moment of silence to reflect on whose land we each reside in our many locations around the US and on planet Earth. Now we will greet each other in a time of beholding. If you feel so moved, please turn on your camera, put your Zoom on the gallery view, and scroll through the pages of beautiful souls. You can wave, say hello in the chat, and behold one another as we continue to create online community together. For those in the sanctuary, we send our love and greetings to you.
What a perfect lead-in to our story for all ages.
Good morning, All Souls. I'm Dolores Miller, your Director of Religious Education. Welcome to a fun and exciting new church year. The All Souls theme for September is reunion. Reunion, coming back together again. It was in the summer when the relatives came. They filled an ice chest full of water and soda pop and sandwiches, and up they drove. They left when it was still dark out, and they drove all day long and into the night. And as they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses in different mountains, and they thought about us, waiting for them. When they drank up all their water and soda pop and ate all their sandwiches, they finally pulled into our yard.
We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. We are family. I got all my sisters.
Then it was hugging time. Oh, to hug again. Those relatives passed us all around, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying. Oh, those relatives. The relatives weren't particular about beds, which was a good thing because there weren't any extra. So some of them squeezed in with us, and the rest just slept anywhere, some with arms and legs thrown over the nearest person. It was different, going to sleep with all that new breathing in the house. The relatives stayed for weeks. We sang, we danced, they helped us tend our garden, and they fixed every broken thing they could find.
We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Sing it to me. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family.
Finally, after a long time, they filled their ice chest and off they went. They left early in the morning when it was still dark. And we stood there and we waved goodbye until they disappeared down the road. Then we crawled back into our beds, which felt too big and too quiet. And the relatives drove on all day long and into the night. And as they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses in different mountains. And they thought about missing us, and we missed them. When they were finally home, they crawled into their soft, silent beds and dreamed about the next summer when we'd all be together again.
I love that story. Thank you to everybody who made it, and welcome back to Homecoming Sunday and to the sanctuary at All Souls. It has been a long time coming, and here we are. It may feel familiar and a little surreal at the same time. Perhaps there are things that are different from before, the last time you entered this sanctuary. And whether you are online or in person, we are just excited to see you. I'm Reverend Louise Green. I am the Minister of Congregational Care with some announcements in the life of the congregation. First of all, I'm wishing all of us celebrating the Jewish high holidays a good week as we move towards Yom Kippur. This day of returning and atonement, prayer and fasting begins Wednesday night and goes through Thursday. And in this holy time is space to begin again in love. which we might all do this week as part of honoring this tradition. You might have read or known that All Souls Story Year is our focus for the entire year. And so our themes go around stories month by month in worship, in adult spiritual development, and religious education. So September is Tell Me a Story About Reunions. So you'll be hearing a lot about reunion. As part of that focus, we are starting up some We Connect Wednesdays every week from 7:30 to 8:30 on Zoom. So you have a touch point midweek and a place to connect, learn, and restore. On September 15th, our touch point is the return to monthly Vespers, and the theme is reunion. On September 22nd, it's connecting through poetry on the theme of reunion. On September 29th, it's connecting through spiritual practices of, yes, I will be leading that evening. And we hope you'll get in the habit of coming some Wednesdays or any Wednesday or all Wednesdays. We're going to have a big social justice ministry kickoff on Saturday, September 25th, noon to 3 Eastern Time on Zoom. The socializing will start 30 minutes beforehand, and this offers spiritual sustenance, relationship building, concrete skills with a focus on the priorities that we most need at this time. It's open to everybody, whether you're brand new or already involved. And it's exciting because it's a joint project with the social justice program at First Unitarian of Portland, Oregon. Their senior minister, the Reverend Dr. Bill Sinkford, is serving as our minister in residence at All Souls this coming year. Yay! He'll be preaching. He will be preaching on September 26th. And registration is required for this kickoff on September 25th. So look at the weekly bulletin if you have questions. Write or talk to Reverend Rob Keithan, the Minister for Social Justice. And now I will roll away and introduce Neil Manzullo, our All Souls Board Chair, for a word about All Souls' vision and our future. Thank you.
Good morning, All Souls. So my name is Neil Manzullo. I'm the president of the Board of Trustees. And I have a question for everybody here, which is, do you just feel so overwhelmed sometimes? Because if I get real, it is beautiful to be here in this sanctuary. It is beautiful and sustaining to be back, but I will walk out those doors. And right now I'm 37, and in the 20 years since I spent a day as a teenager frantically driving around DC and Northern Virginia trying to get a hold of my father who worked in the city, I've lived through a lot. During those past 20 years, I've lived through 2 wars, a financial meltdown, the world literally burning, a pandemic that has taken not just lives, but our ability to worship and grieve together, continuous acts of systemic racial violence, a terrorist attack on the Capitol where I work and my own relatives rushing to deny the reality of that day. And in Texas, a Supreme Court sticking its head in the sand as people put bounties on the heads of those who just want to help people make healthcare decisions about their own bodies. So standing here, I will say it is beautiful to be back here, but I feel overwhelmed sometimes. And I think a lot of people here do too. But I have another question. Do you think that All Souls can create some hope in this world? Because I do. I do. It's why I'm here. During my life, I have traveled from a fundamentalist Christian environment where I literally had a textbook that was pro-apartheid to be a member of this community, where last year I was able to work with congregants to write what might be the most progressive set of anti-racism policies in place at UUA Church. So this church gives me hope because people here do the work of transformation, and being around that energy gives me hope for the world. And I think that you all are here because your lives have been given hope. Your lives have been transformed through being at All Souls. So I have a few more questions, though, and they're harder. How are we going to create hope? In what ways are we going to transform lives? Whose lives are we going to transform? What kind of future are we going to create? And what are we going to risk to create that future? Those are tough questions. And today the board is launching a major project called Imagining Our Future. It's a church-wide project to help us answer those questions by setting new church goals. Okay, so what's a church goal? Well, a church goal is a discrete, time-bound dream for our future. It is something that we covenant to work on as a community during the next 5 or so years. And you may have noticed, but we have a lot of people. We have a lot of people with a lot of different dreams. So I, for instance, dream of a true interfaith community. Now, you might say we have one, but I think people here actually hide some parts of their faith because they are afraid of ruffling feathers. They are afraid of conflict if they talk too much about believing in Jesus or not believing in God or spirit of life at all. And so I think sometimes we hide ourselves. And so I dream of a true interfaith community where we live in the ambiguity that comes from showing our full faith. That's tough, and it is also just my dream, and I am one person. And I've talked with a lot of other people who have different dreams. One person dreams of a culture of care, a community where people feel known, feel seen in their fullness, held with love and support in good times and bad, where if you don't show up on a Sunday, someone calls and says, I didn't see you on Zoom, I didn't see you in church. Is everything okay? What can I do for you? A culture of care. I talked with another person who dreams of a community that feeds and clothes and homes those around us, including our longtime neighbors. During the pandemic, people lived on the steps of All Souls because they needed homes. People lived on our steps. These are really big dreams, and those are 3 dreams, and we're 100 or so people in this sanctuary. We're more people on Zoom, and we have a lot of dreams. And we need to figure out what our shared dreams are, what the dreams are that we will work towards as a congregation. And so that's what this project, Imagining Our Future, aims to do. So we need shared goals because the simple truth is that All Souls can't do everything. We wish we could, but we can't. But we can do something. And this project invites us to answer the question of what are we going to work toward during the next few years. We also need church goals because they are quite literally what we ask the staff of the church to accomplish. So the staff is a critical part of All Souls, but it is up to us to name the dreams that we want to realize, and then they help us get there. And we also need church goals because we're about to enter really into the midst of a ministerial search. And we need to tell interested applicants, what does All Souls do in this world right now? Now, we can talk about our history, and it is a beautiful history, but the history is the past, and the past is not the future, and we need ministers who support our future. So the board's asking all of you to be a part of imagining our future. And participation, thankfully, is quite simple. All you have to do is one simple thing: attend a small group workshop. So there are about 24 congregants that have volunteered to spend all of next Saturday learning how to lead these workshops. And these workshops are a time to reconnect with each other, to dream big about the future, to dream big about what we as a community will do. They'll be held every Saturday, Tuesday, and Thursday during October and the first week of November. There are both in-person and Zoom options. You'll all have a brochure at future services. It'll be on the website. It'll be in the chat. You won't be able to stop hearing about this project. There's going to be an email going out tomorrow. So I named all of these functional reasons why it's important to have church goals, right? Harnessing our collective power, giving direction to our staff, figuring out what kind of minister we want and need. And those are all really important. But there is another reason it is urgently important right now to have church goals. And that's this. When we ask, what will we accomplish, it presumes a we. It presumes a church. It presumes communities coming together. And we can't take that for granted. I think the past year and a half have taught us that we can't take things for granted. And we can't pretend that the strength of our history, the strength of our music, the strength of our care for each other is going to keep us going forever. The past few years have been exceptionally difficult in the life of this church. Not only did we have our own internal trauma with the departure of multiple beloved ministers, but as we were healing and transforming from that, the pandemic took our ability to be together. This community, this staff have done a remarkable job of sticking together. But the next few months and year are going to ask us a pretty profound question. Can we reconvene as a community? That's a question of energy. It's a question of dedication, of faith in All Souls Unitarian. And the only way we can answer that question is through the act of exercising our collective energy. So it's 2021, and I am tempted to feel guilty, as I normally do, asking people for their energy. But right now, I don't. And I don't because I know that people here are hungry for reconnection and for reunion. And this is an opportunity to do so. So I've had a lot of questions, and my very last question is this. Are you going to be there? Are you going to help imagine our future and then create it? I really hope so. Thank you for your time.
Yes, indeed. One group of people that we should all be grateful for is our Board of Trustees. Thank you to Neil and to the others who give so much of their time and spirit for this church. Here are the communal and congregational concerns we lift up this morning. First, we recognize yesterday as the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001, that claimed thousands of lives and changed our world forever. We mourn those lost on that day, as well as those who died afterward from toxic exposure during the rescue operation. We also lament those who lost their lives or their civil liberties, or both, in the so-called war on terror that followed. We pray today as well for the people in and of Afghanistan. May this anniversary serve as a reminder that our salvation lies in our solidarity. True peace only comes through collaboration and understanding, not force and domination. Here at All Souls, as we celebrate 2 homecoming Sundays as best we can, given the circumstances, let us think of the many members of our congregation still homebound by age or medical situations. If there is someone you know who is not able to move much in the world, please consider a card or call to bring some caring warmth their way. And today, we send healing thoughts to Judy Lever, who is doing well after hip replacement surgery Thursday. Judy is now home after a night in the hospital and feeling glad to be headed towards recovery. We send healing thoughts to Dolores Miller as well, who is recovering from a sprained knee on Thursday. After 2 recent eye issues, she did not need this. If trouble comes in threes, we hope she is all done. Prayers for a swift recovery to Dolores. We mourn also the death of Brian Petruska's father, Paul, who died in St. Louis this week. On Saturday, September 25th at 1 p.m., there will be a celebration of life for Alex Sinoli. Please join his life partner, Nadine Dutcher, and Reverend Louise Green as we remember Alex with family and friends. Check the church calendar for the Zoom link. And finally, I am truly saddened to announce the death of longtime member Robert Troutman, who died on September 4th. Retired journalist, Robert was active for many years with the All Souls Archives team. We offer our condolences and love to his wife, Ellen, his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and to all, including so many here at All Souls, who will miss him. In the silence that follows, please say aloud the names you carry on your heart this morning. Spirit of life and love, God who transcends divisions, help us to remember and, more importantly, to embody the truth that we are members of one human family. Help us to care for each other. Help us to be present for each other's pain. Help us reach out in love to those who could use a little extra love. Help us also as we wrestle with our own demons, whatever they may be. Remind us that we are not alone. Remind us that we can get through, even if that path seems unclear. Dear Spirit of justice and liberation, help us to be agents of justice and liberation. As we gather and regather with this community, whether in person or not, remind us that we are connected to each other and to the calling of our faith. May love ground and sustain all that we do. Amen.
Thursday.
Good morning. Family Reunion by Rita Dove. 30 seconds into the barbecue, my Cleveland cousins have everyone speaking Southern, broadened vowels and dropped consonants, whoops and caws. It's more osmosis than magic, a sliding thrall back to a time when working the tire factories meant entire neighborhoods coming up from Georgia or Tennessee. Accents helplessly intact, while their children, inflections flattened to match the field they thought they were playing on. When it was safe to roll out a drawl, just as it's understood, potluck means resurrecting the food we've abandoned along the way for the sake of sleeker thighs. I look over the yard to the porch with its battalion of aunts, the wavering ranks of uncles at the grill. Everywhere else, hordes of progeny are swirling and my cousins yakking on as if they were waist deep in quicksand, but like the books recommend, aren't moving until someone hauls them free. Who are all these children? Who had them and with whom? Through the general coffee tones, the shamed genetics cut a creamy swath. Cherokees, burnt umber transposed onto generous lips. A glance flares gray above the crushed nose we label anonymous African. It's all here. The beautiful geometry of Mendel's peas and their grim logic. And though we remain clearly divided on the merits of okra, there's still time to demolish the cheese grits and tear into slow cooked ribs so tender we agree they're worth the extra pound or two our men folks swear will always bring them home. Pity the poor soul who lives a life without butter. Those pinched knees and tennis shoulders and hatchety smiles.
I want to thank Reverend Maybelle Bennett for reading that poem by Rita Dove entitled Family Reunion. Well, welcome back, All Souls. Woohoo! Let's hear it. Woohoo! Welcome to all joining online in person. I have to say, for the last week or so, I've been singing a way back song by Peaches and Herb, Reunited and It Feels So Good. Remember that? Anybody remember that song? And I've been singing it because for over a year, I've been longing for this moment. Being here in this glorious space and in this room with real people, real bodies, and it feels so good. And it feels so incomplete because I know that there are those of you who are on Zoom who wanted to be here but couldn't because of our registration limitations. And I know that there are some of you on Zoom who didn't want to come into an indoor space with a lot of people just yet. And I also know that there are those of you who live across the country, even all over the world, who had no intention of getting on a plane to fly here today. So it's a reunion of sorts, but there's definitely some things missing. So let's talk about a couple elephants in the room first. Today, as you've heard, is one of 2 homecoming Sundays, and during a normal year, I would expect the church to be packed to the rafters. We would be processing down the aisle and we'd be holding the chalice aloft and the festival choir would be singing their unmasked hearts out. And afterwards, we'd all be piling into Pierce Hall and drinking coffee and running after our children and catching up with one another in the hallways and the lobby. There would be this beehive buzz of exhilaration and, yes, part exhaustion, but it feels like church. That's what church feels like to me, or at least it did until March 2020. So although your ministry and music and staff team have worked very hard to get to this point, and can we just give them all a shout out right now? Ah, seriously. Seriously, it's been a labor of love, but we've all worked very hard to get to this point, and I think at some point we realize it's just not going to be the same. It feels a little bit like an imperfect facsimile of the church many of us have known and loved. So there's another elephant, and that is who is actually not in this particular room, and that is the choirs, the music of the choir. This week, the festival choir, combined All Souls Choir and Jubilee Singers, made the difficult decision not to sing indoors for the time being. Not forever, but for now. Now look, I've heard that y'all do appreciate your ministers and good preaching, but if you had to choose between preaching and music, I think I know where you'd land. And I don't blame you. All Souls is known nationally for its excellence in music because music touches us in places where words cannot go. And I've been feeling there's a lot of words in this service. I know you are disappointed not to have them providing live music as the connective and important tissue and pulse throughout this entire service, and I am too. I'm sorry about that, but they made the wise and prudent choice to protect the most vulnerable among them from the uncertainty of this, can I say this from the pulpit? This damn virus. In addition to that, it is nearly impossible to make beautiful music trying to sing through a mask. And with those with breathing issues, it's actually dangerous. So the director of music and Jubilee Singers came up with an innovative solution. And that is those of us who are in the building will go outside at the end of the service to hear the choir, and we will bring those watching on Zoom outside as well for the grand and glorious conclusion of today's service. Now, I said earlier in a column last week, that months ago, when we came up with this theme of reunion for September, we had imagined a very different kind of ingathering. I think I had in mind a kind of giant family reunion like the ones I remember from my childhood. And the reason I chose Rita Dove's poem was because it really struck a chord with me. There's a couple of similarities. She's from Akron, Ohio. I'm from Akron. There's a line in the poem where she talks about families coming up from Tennessee to work in the rubber factories, which is exactly what my ancestors did. But there are important differences between her cultural traditions and my white European ones. My family didn't eat okra and ribs when we got together. We were more the Jell-O salad, bologna, and mayonnaise on white bread kind of folk. But the feeling that Rita Dove's poem evokes is a universal one. That feeling of belonging to somewhere, to someone. That inner feeling that these are my people. And I remember the anticipation of those early family reunions with the relatives. There'd be the hugging and the, oh, look how much you've grown, and the teasing and laughter and food, of course. My grandmother always brought her Hungarian krustovats, which are cucumbers and sour cream with paprika. And as a child, I looked forward to those gatherings for a while. Because when you're young, it's all food and fun, but when you get older, you start noticing things like Uncle Bob's politics, and Aunt Bertha's martyred complaining, and Cousin Robert's kind of creepy jokes. And then I was expected to do some of the work to make it happen. You mean I gotta bring something to this family potluck? I gotta help clean up afterwards? Why do I have to go? I remember whining. I never got an answer to that question, but eventually, as we all got older and the commitment to attending these gatherings, well, they ended when the last matriarch died. But here's the thing I discovered about reunions, is they provide a valuable opportunity to reflect on who you were at a particular period of time and then compare it with who you are now. So this Reunion Sunday marks the official beginning of a year-long celebration of All Souls' 200th anniversary. It reminds me, it's sort of not unlike the marks that parents make on the doorways to measure the growth of children. We will be examining All Souls' physical, spiritual, emotional growth throughout this year. We will be asking ourselves questions like, when we get real about who we are and who we've been, what future will we create together? This is the year that of All Souls reunion with its past to understand the present moment and to prepare for your future, as you also heard Board President Neil Manzullo say. So I've been exploring the church, which has been fun, and I've discovered one of my favorite rooms in your building is the archives room. It reminds me of the Well of Souls room in that Indiana Jones movie. It's a treasure trove where the voices from the past come alive. And recently I found an article about Reverend David Eaton's ministry, written by Reverend Charles Howe. One line in that article jumped out at me. Reverend Eaton wrote this, quote, "The church is the institution whose primary purpose is to help persons discover, create, and maintain hope." Sometimes words come to us in exactly the right moment. Because this past Thursday morning at 10 a.m., I lost all hope. Everything about today's service seemed to be falling apart. The choir moved its music from indoors to outdoors. We were worried about the ability to Zoom Reverend Maybell. It was kind of iffy. I developed a sudden hacking cough, which necessitated a COVID test, negative, thank you. And then Thursday morning, received a call from a staff member who had been injured and was heading into the ER. I lost hope. That we would be able to bring you the kind of worship service experience at home or in person that we so desperately wanted to bring to you. And then, as is so often the case, I started to awfulize, and my fears grew beyond this service. I began to have doubts about the future of church itself. I don't know if any of you have had the experience of visiting great cathedrals in Europe on a Sunday morning during worship. It can actually be a depressing experience. Sometimes a few dozen faithful people sitting in a church that once held hundreds, maybe even thousands. I started to wonder, could that be our future? I wondered if people would come back to church, or if they would find something more compelling to do on a Sunday morning that didn't take so much effort. In the dark morning of my soul, I asked, could that happen to All Souls? Could this grand building become just another destination spot for future tours? I could hear the guide now. Here once lived a vibrant congregation that now is open mainly as a wedding chapel. Because when you think of those great churches in Europe, what happened was that the culture moved on, but the church didn't. People will always have a need to receive spiritual nourishment, but they weren't finding the spiritual depth in the form that used to feed them. And we all know now that there is no institution that is too big to fail. So it was in that bleak moment that I read the second half of Reverend Eaton's quote. He said, quote, "When people have no hope, they discover hope together. When they cannot discover hope, they create hope together," end quote. And that is exactly what we are doing here today. That this imperfect reunion of ours, we are reinventing, re-inviting church, and we are rediscovering hope, and we are recreating hope together. We are reinventing a church which is now permanently inclusive of those of you who may never set foot in this building. We are fully expanding on the vision of the Church Universal, first articulated by A. Powell Davies, a vision that had people huddling around their radios to hear a good word from All Souls. And if Reverend Davies were alive today, I expect he would be an enthusiastic supporter of our multi-platform church. So in the moment when I feared this perfect offering of a worship service was dissolving, I reached out to my colleagues for help, and I realized all was not lost. All the planning and work that we've done to get to this point was in fact in place. Everything that could be taken care of was. There will be mistakes, there will be imperfections, but let's not forget one definition of imperfection simply means incomplete, not finished. And I hope we then never achieve perfection. Because what this church has built over its 200-year history is worthy of your time and your energy, because it is also our salvation. Now look, I don't use that word lightly. I'm aware of the baggage it carries, but I'm also aware in the dark morning of that panic state, I was not saved by some amorphous being. I was saved from despair by the presence of real human beings. I was saved by a colleague's calm strength. I was saved by the competency and care of our All Souls staff. I was saved by the certain fact that there would likely be someone attending today's service. I know this is true for you as well, because I have seen the ways in which you step in, step up, and save one another. Yes. Amen. Thank you. Look, this pandemic has taken its toll on every single one of us. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, this pandemic has exhausted us. And it has also revealed the incompleteness of that phrase, a more perfect union promised in the preamble of the Constitution. It has revealed the disparities in our healthcare system for Black and brown and transgender and gender nonconforming people. It has revealed anti-Asian bias and hate that has been there all along, but is now made evident for all to see. It has revealed the rage and frustration of white men and women who fear the loss of power in this country. It has revealed the horrors of white supremacy culture and the impact it has on all of us. This pandemic has taken so much from us, but I insist to you today, it is not that powerful. This virus can temporarily take our coffee hour, but it can't take our power. It could take our song, but it can't take our voice. It can take our hugs, but it can't take our heart. It can take a sense of safety, but it cannot sabotage our spirits. It cannot take away our souls, because all souls, we are here and we're gonna be here for another 200 years. Can I get an amen? Amen. Yes. We're going to be written about in another page of the history books of All Souls, of how we lived through this global pandemic, of how we answered the question, when we get real about who we are and who we've been, what future will we create together? We're going to get real this year. We're going to dig in. We're going to get ready, and we're going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate. Because like the best of a family reunion, we're all bringing something to this potluck. So I leave you now with the words from another ancestor, another minister of All Souls, Reverend Dr. Rob Hardy's. And he reminds us of this. He says, "The world is too beautiful to be praised by one voice. It is too broken to be healed by one set of hands. That is why we come together, to savor and to save the world. May it be so." Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Rollins. You know, you can't always remember the last time you did a particular thing. The last time you dialed a rotary phone. The last time you pushed your child or your niece in a stroller. The last time you went to the movies, because you didn't necessarily know it would be the last time. So it's like that. I don't remember the last time I attended an All Souls service here in our beautiful sanctuary. Do you? How many of you remember the last time you were here for a 9:30 or an 11:15 service? Good for you. I don't remember it off the top of my head because I didn't know it was going to be the last time I would be here for 18 plus months. On the other hand, I clearly remember some All Souls firsts since March of 2020. The first Zoom check-in with Reverend Hardy's, the first pre-recorded YouTube Sunday service, the first live Zoom All Souls service, the first time I met Reverend Kathleen Rollins in person. I will never forget this morning. Sunday, September 12th, 2021, the first of the 2021 Homecoming Sundays, coming to you live from the All Souls Sanctuary. I know the majority of congregants are here by Zoom, and thanks to the All Souls staff for making the hybrid services possible. Thanks to the staff, the board, the ministers, Dr. Tracy Hughes Potter, who worked and reworked the budget to include all the technology, who created, tweaked, recreated, considered, reconsidered every single solitary detail, hundreds, probably millions of details to get to today, the first live Homecoming Sunday of 2021. And thanks to you, All Souls congregants, for so generously giving to All Souls. None of this would have come to fruition without your donations, pledges, and gifts. You may click the link in the chat, which will direct you to the All Souls online giving. Thank you for your generosity.
Sing to me comfort, sing to me hope, sing to me friendships I have known. Sing me a praise.
There have been many times over the past 18 months where I have thought, whew, it's hard to be a parent right now. Anyone with me? That's worth an applause. And last Friday was no exception. I desperately wanted to attend the live concert performance of Come From Away that was being performed at the Lincoln Memorial. Unfortunately, the performance was 2 hours long and not recommended for young kids, especially after the first week of kindergarten. But after another challenging week, my spirit needed this show, which the writers have actually referred to as the 9/12 musical. For those who don't know, Come From Away is about a town in Newfoundland that rallied together to welcome 7,000 stranded passengers whose planes were grounded after the 9/11 attacks. The musical celebrates the resiliency of the human spirit and our deep need for real, authentic human kindness and connection. It is an account of what we do in the wake of tragedy. Human kindness, real connection. Did I mention how much I needed what this musical had to offer? Alsol's story around the 9/11 attacks is one that has been recounted to me many times. It was Reverend Hardy's first Sunday in the pulpit as the new young senior minister. The community came together for an impromptu service and wept together and held one another while singing the hymn, "This Is My Song." A moment of human connection, of human kindness, of empathy in a world where our nation was not yet ready to be empathic. Friends, I am so grateful for the joyful coincidence to be with you all on 9/12, the day after the anniversary of the tragedy. A day for imagining what we can do in the wake of so many tragedies since that fateful day 20 years ago. Our world is still so broken. But today, let us turn our hearts toward kindness and empathy. Let us hold one another, literally or figuratively, as we hum or sing or meditate on our closing hymn, "This Is My Song." Please rise and embody your spirit.
This is my song, O Lord of
Speaking to today's service, take courage, friends. The way is often hard. The path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. But take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Go in peace this day and all days. And we will recess outside for our closing music with the choir. Just a moment. Blessings.